Hey friends, before the story begins, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that whenever we bring a new story, you get it first. If you have trouble sleeping or your mind feels restless, then this story is especially for you. The stars had never been kind to new civilizations. In the endless black ocean of space, power was everything. Old empires ruled with cold arrogance, their fleets shining like silver blades across the night. They believed themselves eternal. And when humanity first reached the stars, those empires barely noticed. To them, humans were children, loud, clumsy, emotional creatures from a blue world. The Galactic Empire, the strongest among them, watched humanity's rise with amusement. They had seen 1,000 species rise before, and they had seen just as many fall. When the Terran Union joined the Galactic Council, the event was small. The humans came in peace, carrying hope and pride. Their ambassadors spoke of cooperation, unity, and a shared future. The council chambers filled with hundreds of alien races listened in silence, and then they laughed. To them, humans were naive. Their weapons were outdated, their ships small and slow. Their technology was decades behind even the weakest member of the council. But what drew the most laughter wasn't their weakness. It was their confidence. They mocked the Terran ambassador when he spoke of Earth's spirit. They found it amusing that humans believed in courage, in sacrifice, in love for one another. These were ancient concepts to the older species, things they had long abandoned in favor of control and logic. The Empire's media broadcasted clips of humans struggling to adapt to alien customs. They turned Earth's culture into jokes, its history into punchlines. In the great galactic markets, traders sold human trinkets and cheap imitations of Earth's creations as novelties. Even the galactic military academies used humanity as a case study for primitive cooperation failures. Every insult was recorded. Every mockery was remembered. But humanity did not respond. Not yet. Instead, they learned. The Terran diplomats smiled politely, pretending not to understand the jokes whispered behind their backs. Their scientists joined alien research teams, studying their technology and quietly improving it. Their military observed, collecting every bit of data, how alien ships fought, how they thought, and more importantly, how they underestimated new opponents. For the first time in history, humanity's greatest weapon was patience. The years passed. Humanity stayed quiet, humble, observant. They built colonies, mined asteroids, and traded peacefully. The Empire grew comfortable, confident that Earth would never rise beyond its shadow. Then came the first crack in the silence. A small Terran outpost on the edge of the Empire vanished. No warning, no signal, only an empty void where hundreds of human settlers once lived. The Empire said it was an accident. A mining failure, perhaps. Earth demanded an investigation. None came. The Galactic Council shrugged. The Empire laughed again, but the humans didn't laugh. They buried their dead and went silent once more, but this time it was not patience. It was planning. In the secret halls beneath Earth's surface, leaders met in the dark. The Terran Defense Council, once a ceremonial organization, was reborn. Its mission was simple: never let this happen again. On Mars, engineers worked day and night, hidden beneath the red dust. They built new ships with armor the galaxy had never seen. They used alien technology, reverse-engineered and improved with human creativity. They called it Project Nemesis. On the Moon, the first helium singularity reactors came online, small, powerful, and invisible to alien scanners. On Titan, robotic factories forged silent drones that could move faster than light, leaving no trace. The world above saw peace. The world below prepared for war. Still, the Empire continued its games. They demanded taxes from human colonies, seized Terran cargo ships, and mocked Earth's protests. When a Terran fleet tried to defend one of its border stations, the Empire sent a single cruiser and destroyed them all in less than an hour. The news spread across the galaxy, and the laughter returned. The Empire thought it had proven its dominance again, but in doing so, it had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, because this time, humanity did not beg for mercy. They did not call for peace. They disappeared. No human ships were seen leaving Earth. No signals came from their colonies. Trade routes went dark. The Terran Union had gone silent, completely silent. At first, the galaxy celebrated. Perhaps, they said, the humans finally learned their place. But silence can be more terrifying than words. Weeks passed, then months. Then one day, a signal appeared near the Empire's outer rim, brief, distorted, and unreadable. A patrol ship was sent to investigate. It never returned. The Empire sent a fleet. The fleet vanished. No explosions, no survivors, no wreckage, just nothing. The Empire's admirals dismissed it as a malfunction. But deep in the minds of those who remembered Earth, fear began to take root. In the cold vacuum of space, silence had meaning. It was the sound of something watching, something waiting, and somewhere in the black, behind cloaked ships and encrypted frequencies, humanity waited too. Their leaders had made a decision, not to strike yet, but to remember. They watched the same empires that once mocked them fight over resources, betray their allies, and collapse into corruption. They saw the mighty become weak through pride. They saw the galaxy laugh at them, and they smiled back in silence. Because humans knew something the galaxy had forgotten. They knew that weakness could be hidden, that patience could be power, that vengeance, when prepared in silence, was unstoppable. For every insult, for every world they had lost, for every name erased from history, they would return the pain 1,000-fold. The galaxy mocked humanity because it feared what it did not understand. And soon, it would understand. As the Empire's fleets grew fat with overconfidence and the Council's laughter echoed through the stars, far below the lunar surface, the Terran Council completed its final plan. The first fleet of the Nemesis program was ready, silent, invisible, deadly, powered by the dark heart of a helium singularity. They would not announce themselves. They would not issue warnings. When humanity returned, the galaxy would not have time to mock again, for the age of mockery was over, and the age of retribution was about to begin. For years, the galaxy moved on, pretending humanity no longer mattered. Trade routes reopened, colonies rebuilt, and the Empire expanded deeper into the void. Yet beneath all that routine, a quiet unease grew, like the calm before a coming storm. No one admitted it aloud, but whispers followed every shadow in space. Freighters vanished near Terran sectors, signals went dark without reason, and on some nights, the stars themselves seemed wrong, flickering like dying eyes. The Galactic Empire blamed pirates, cosmic radiation, even solar storms. But those who had fought humans before knew better. Humanity had disappeared, and that was the most dangerous thing it could have done. The silence stretched across decades. For the older species of the galaxy, time moved slowly. They forgot. But humanity remembered. On Earth, beneath the frozen silence of the lunar command centers, lights still burned. Deep under the red soil of Mars, thousands of engineers worked in silence, their faces lit by the glow of holographic blueprints. The Nemesis program had evolved far beyond what anyone imagined. Earth was no longer the same. Its skies were filled with dark satellites, invisible to sensors. Its moon was covered in orbital defense platforms that didn't exist on any galactic record. The humans had erased themselves from the map. Now they built something far greater, something unseen, something unstoppable. Every resource mined from asteroids, every hidden trade, every stolen technology was part of one grand plan to ensure that humanity would never again be mocked, enslaved, or erased. The Galactic Empire, unaware of what was being built in silence, grew arrogant again. Their admirals laughed during their briefings. Humans were fragile, they said. They broke too easily. They'll never rise again. And yet patrol fleets kept vanishing. The Empire sent larger ships. Those vanished too. Anxiety spread through the border sectors. Merchants began refusing to travel near old Terran space. Rumors spread of shadows that moved faster than light, of strange energy readings that didn't match any known ship design, of cold blue lights drifting through the dark like ghosts. They called them the Phantoms of Sol. The Empire dismissed the stories as superstition. But in hidden war rooms across Earth and Mars, the Terran command listened carefully. The silence had become their greatest weapon. Humanity had learned that words were useless against arrogance. So they chose another language, the language of fear. Every few months a ship would vanish. A week later, its black box would reappear, floating in space, melted and unreadable, except for a single message burned into its hull. Remember Earth. No one understood how it appeared. No one wanted to. As the months passed, the Empire's confidence began to crack. Border worlds demanded protection. Colonies rebelled. The Empire sent more ships, spreading itself thin. And humanity watched, patient as ever. Deep beneath Mars, the Terran High Command gathered. Around a circular table of black steel, the greatest minds of Earth, Luna, and Titan stood in silence. They had built fleets that could cloak in the radiation of stars, weapons that bent light, and AI commanders that could outthink alien fleets in seconds. And yet they still waited. They waited for the right moment, the moment when the Empire was blind, deaf, and full of pride. That moment came unexpectedly. The Galactic Empire declared a new expansion campaign toward the Outer Rim. The King deployed 80% of their fleet to crush a minor rebellion in the Jatel systems. For the first time in centuries, the space around Sol was unguarded. The humans saw their window. From the dark side of the moon, a signal pulsed. One note. Simple. Cold. Awaken. Every hidden ship, every station, every drone buried beneath the crust of Mars came alive. Engines hummed quietly. Energy cores glowed. The Terran fleet rose like ghosts from the void. Black, silent, endless. Hundreds of ships formed lines beyond Earth's orbit, their hulls absorbing starlight. To alien scanners, they were nothing, a blank patch of space. But to human eyes, it was the beginning of something sacred. Humanity had waited for centuries to speak again. And when they spoke, it would not be with words. The Terran flagship, Erebus, powered up first. Its surface shimmered with blue energy, its massive wings unfolding like a predator waking from hibernation. Around it, destroyers and cruisers aligned silently. They did not broadcast their presence. They did not call for truce. They simply moved. Their first target was not military, it was symbolic. The Imperial Capital's trade relay, the same station where Earth had once been humiliated, now stood as the heart of galactic communication. It was guarded by 5 fleets, countless defense grids, and a network of satellites. But the humans had studied it for generations. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every pattern. At 0314 Galactic Standard Time, the first Terran missiles fired. They made no sound. They left no light. They were invisible until impact. In less than 10 seconds, the trade relay vanished. The explosion was silent, beautiful, and absolute. Billions across the galaxy watched their communication networks flicker and die. No one understood what had happened. Only one phrase appeared on the last functioning data stream before blackout. Humanity remembers. The galaxy froze. Panic spread faster than light. Was it an accident? A solar flare? A new alien weapon? But then, more reports came in. Patrol fleets gone. Outposts erased. Dozens of sectors offline. The Empire tried to respond. They called for fleets. None answered. Their communication grid had collapsed. Perfectly. Completely. The silence that followed was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. Every admiral, every emperor, every race that had mocked humanity now felt it. The same silence Earth had endured. But this time, it was their turn to fear. In the depths of space, the Terran fleets moved like shadows, leaving nothing behind. They didn't conquer. They didn't claim. They erased. Humanity had learned long ago that revenge was not about victory. It was about memory. They wanted the galaxy to remember the laughter, the insults, the centuries of humiliation, and to understand that every action had a cost. As the burning remains of the Empire's relay station drifted through the void, a new signal appeared. Faint, encrypted, impossible to trace. It contained just 4 words. The silence is over. And across the galaxy, millions of alien hearts turned cold. Because deep down every one of them understood what those words meant. The humans were back. And this time they weren't coming to talk. The storm had begun. The galaxy burned. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled the stars with unmatched power. Their fleets numbered in the tens of thousands. Their technology was ancient and vast. Their arrogance was limitless. But all that history, all that power, meant nothing now. One by one, their colonies went dark. Patrol fleets vanished. Outposts were destroyed without warning. Entire systems were cut off from the central network. It was not a war. It was a disappearance. The first confirmed sighting came from the edge of the Jatel sector. A mining ship caught a glimpse of something in the void. Black ships moving in perfect silence. No drive signatures, no energy trails. Just shadows against the stars. The last message they sent was a single line. They see us. After that, nothing. The Empire scrambled its fleets. Admirals barked orders. Emergency transmissions flooded the channels. But the Terran fleets had already learned from their enemies. They didn't fight where the Empire expected. They didn't fight fair. They struck communication lines first. Every relay, every satellite, every data corridor, gone. Then they cut off fuel depots, supply stations, and trade routes. The Empire's fleets were left isolated, blind, and hungry. When they tried to regroup, the humans were already there. At first, alien commanders refused to believe it was humanity. They called it impossible. Humans cannot hide from our scanners, they said. Humans cannot build ships that fast. Humans cannot fight an empire. But the battlefield did not care what they believed. Over the red deserts of Vornus Prime, an entire Imperial fleet of 80 warships vanished in under 2 minutes. Sensors picked up hundreds of heat signatures approaching from the planet's dark side, and then nothing. When rescue ships arrived, all they found were twisted fragments of armor, drifting silently in the dust. The Imperial analysts called it an anomaly. Then it happened again, and again. By the third month, the Empire had lost 200 ships. By the sixth, entire sectors were in chaos. The galaxy began to whisper a new name, the Ghost Fleet. They said these ships appeared out of nowhere, their weapons cutting through shields like glass. They said the humans didn't communicate, didn't demand surrender, didn't even collect salvage. They came, they struck, and they vanished into the dark. The Empire tried to adapt. They upgraded their sensors, changed their communication frequencies, and set traps in every known Terran route. But the humans were always one step ahead. They knew how the Empire thought, because they had studied them for centuries. Every tactic, every formation, every reaction, humans had analyzed it all. And they used it with terrifying precision. On the planet Draxus, the Empire gathered one of its largest defense fleets, over 500 warships, surrounding the planet in a perfect sphere. They waited for the humans to appear. They didn't have to wait long. At 400 hours, every ship's system froze. Their engines stalled. Weapons refused to fire. Communications went dark. In the silence that followed, a single message appeared on every screen. You taught us this. Then the skies opened. Thousands of Terran drones descended from orbit, raining blue fire. The Imperial fleet never had a chance. When the smoke cleared, Draxus was gone, turned into glass. That was the moment the Empire realized what they were facing. The humans had not only returned, they had evolved. They had built weapons that could rewrite code mid-battle, ships that could bend radar, and AI systems that predicted enemy movements before they happened. They were no longer fighting a young species. They were fighting survival itself. The Galactic Council called for an emergency meeting. Every empire, every dominion, every coalition gathered in fear. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to launch a full-scale extermination campaign against humanity. But before they could agree on anything, the Council's main hub went offline. The building shook. The windows turned black, and every screen across the station lit up with one image. The blue crest of Earth surrounded by the words, "We asked for peace. You gave us mockery. Now we return the favor." The feed cut off. The station's orbit decayed. The Council fell into the atmosphere of the nearest gas giant and burned. There was no negotiation. There was no surrender. Only silence. Across the galaxy, panic turned into chaos. Civilizations that once mocked humans now turned on each other, desperate to survive. Old alliances crumbled. Borders dissolved. The very structure of galactic power began to collapse. Meanwhile, the humans kept moving, calm, patient, unstoppable. They didn't destroy for pleasure. They destroyed for precision. They targeted weapons factories, communication centers, and shipyards, the heart of the Empire's control, and they never stayed long enough to be found. Admiral Serix of the Jatel Dominion once described it in his final transmission. They fight like ghosts, think like gods, and move like smoke. We don't see them coming. We only see what they leave behind. By the time the Empire realized the full scale of the Terran offensive, it was already too late. Half their fleets were gone. A quarter of their colonies had vanished from records, and every attempt at retaliation ended in failure. In the ruins of one destroyed world, a probe found strange writing burned into the ground and a single phrase carved deep into the stone. "Never again will we kneel." That message spread across the galaxy faster than light. It became a warning, a prophecy, a truth. The age of arrogance was ending. The age of humanity had begun, and yet in the heart of the Empire, the Supreme Council still refused to believe it. They declared humanity a temporary threat. They swore to rebuild, to launch one final counterattack, to crush Earth once and for all. But as they prepared, something else happened. Their fleets refused to respond. Their colonies sent no signal, and from the far edge of the void, a shadow moved, larger than any fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The Terran Armada had arrived. The war that the galaxy once mocked was now their nightmare. The hunters had become the hunted, and the fall of giants had only just begun. The stars had never been so silent. The once bright trade lanes of the Galactic Empire now drifted with debris, shattered ships, broken stations, and fragments of banners that no longer meant anything. The hum of civilization had faded, replaced by the cold whisper of the void. And somewhere within that void, the Terran Armada advanced. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships were not built for beauty or ceremony. They were forged for purpose. Black hulls that swallowed starlight, weapons that pulsed like the heartbeat of vengeance. Each vessel moved in perfect formation, silent and patient like predators gliding through dark waters. At the center of the fleet floated the TSV Resolution, the command ship. It was massive, a city in space carrying both the legacy and fury of an entire species. From its decks, humanity watched the galaxy that once mocked them fall into fear and silence. Every planet they liberated or destroyed echoed the same message. Humanity had returned, and they remembered everything. The echoes of war spread faster than the light of the explosions. Empires that once boasted of their eternal dominance now fought among themselves, desperate to survive. Some begged for peace. Others tried to hide. A few attempted to fight and vanished without a trace. But the humans, they were not here to conquer. They were here to remind. Every decision they made was precise. Every strike carried meaning. They didn't waste their power on destruction for its own sake. They used it to dismantle the very idea that the galaxy could ever again stand above them. The Empire's propaganda called them terrorists. The colonies whispered a different word, revenants, ghosts of vengeance returning from the ashes of humiliation. Across the ruined corridors of the Imperial outpost Helion 9, an alien officer staggered through the smoke. His armor was cracked, his breathing shallow. Around him, the station lay in ruins. Walls melted, consoles fried, corridors opened to the void. He stumbled toward the command center, where a single screen still flickered with life. It showed a live feed from orbit, Terran ships hovering like shadows above the dying station. No signals, no hails, only silent observation. Then, one by one, they vanished into the dark. The officer fell to his knees. The war was no longer just about territory. It had become a message carved into the stars. Mock humanity, and you mock survival itself. Meanwhile, in the heart of Terran command, analysts studied the reactions of the Empire. Every intercepted signal, every coded distress call, every movement of a fleeing fleet, all were tracked, decoded, and predicted. Human AI systems, forged from decades of desperation and necessity, evolved faster than the Empire could comprehend. They could map entire fleets through whispers of subspace distortion, anticipate ambushes days before they happened, and calculate victory with machine precision. But what made humanity unstoppable wasn't just their technology. It was their will. For centuries, They had been laughed at, enslaved, and ignored. Now, united by loss, humanity fought not as nations but as one species. Every battle cry carried the weight of every fallen generation. Every weapon bore the anger of a world that had learned the cost of mercy. On the 4th month of the campaign, the Empire tried one final strategy, the Last Chain Protocol. They gathered what remained of their fleets, nearly 1,000 warships from every allied species. The formation stretched across an entire star system, surrounding a fortress world known as Varellus Prime, the jewel of the Galactic Empire. They called it the Unbreakable Wall. For the first time, the galaxy watched with hope that the humans might finally be stopped. For 3 days, the wall stood untouched. The human fleet didn't attack. They simply waited, hovering beyond sensor range. The Empire grew restless, confident, and arrogant once again. Then, on the 4th day, every sun in the system dimmed. At first, the aliens thought it was a natural eclipse, until their instruments began to fail. The stars themselves flickered, and space began to ripple like liquid. From the darkness emerged thousands of Terran ships, their hulls reflecting no light, their drives bending reality itself. The Empire's first volley never reached them. The plasma bolts disintegrated mid-space, absorbed by invisible fields. Then the humans fired back. The sky became white fire. For 8 minutes, the system burned. Energy storms ripped through space, tearing ships apart like paper. Shields collapsed. Engines exploded. Planets trembled under the shock waves. The unbreakable wall had fallen. When the storm ended, only silence remained. Varellus Prime's surface had been scorched to black glass. The surviving ships drifted, powerless, their communications dead. And floating in the wreckage was a single Terran transmission beacon, pulsing with one short message. For every insult, for every scar, for Earth. That signal spread across the galaxy faster than light. Civilizations stopped to listen. Whole worlds went quiet. Even the most powerful species, the ones who once ruled humanity like slaves, now watched in silence, knowing the war was no longer about victory or defeat. It was about remembrance. The Empire's capital, Kelvaris, stood as the last stronghold. It was a world of endless towers and silver oceans, home to billions, protected by the most advanced planetary shield ever built. They believed themselves untouchable. But far beyond their atmosphere, deep in the black silence of space, the Terran Armada gathered again. They had no need for speeches, no need for threats. Their actions had spoken louder than any declaration of war. They came not with rage, but with resolve. And as their ships formed in perfect formation, ready to strike the final blow, one truth became clear. This was not the same humanity the galaxy had mocked. This was something else, something forged by pain, sharpened by memory, and fueled by unity. The galaxy had created its own destroyer. Now, as Kelvaris shone beneath the twin suns, the humans prepared their final message, one that would end an age and begin another. But before they could fire, sensors detected movement deep within the Empire's capital, a new kind of energy signature, something massive, something ancient. The Empire had unleashed a weapon born from the last days of their pride, and for the first time in this war, the humans paused. The galaxy held its breath. The end was coming. In the heart of Kelvaris, the capital of the Galactic Empire, the sky turned crimson. The people had never seen such light, not from the twin suns, not from the endless skyline of silver towers, not from the stars that had guided their civilization for millennia. This light came from beneath the planet itself. Deep underground, in the forgotten vaults of the first emperors, something ancient had awakened. For centuries, the weapon had been sealed away, hidden even from the highest councils. It was called the Eclipse Core, a remnant from an age when the Empire had first learned to manipulate the energy of dying stars. It was said to hold the power of a supernova, compressed into a sphere of living plasma. The architects of the Empire had sworn never to use it. It was a weapon of extinction. But now, as the Terran Armada surrounded Kelvaris, the last emperor had no choice. From orbit, the humans watched as strange readings rippled across the planet's magnetic field. Energy levels spiked beyond comprehension. Space itself began to distort, bending light and shadow. The analysts aboard the TSV Resolution recognized the pattern almost instantly. Gravitational manipulation on a stellar scale. Something no living species should have been able to control. The Eclipse core was awakening. Across the fleet, alarms blared. Terran commanders analyzed the data with cold precision. They didn't panic, they prepared. For humans had seen this kind of madness before, not from aliens, but from themselves. They knew what desperation looked like. They knew what it meant when an empire pushed itself to the brink of destruction just to deny defeat. The empire believed the weapon would save them. They didn't understand that it would end them. From the depths of Selvaris, the Eclipse core pulsed, once, twice, and then the sky split open. A massive surge of energy erupted upward, forming a crimson column that pierced the atmosphere. Space trembled as gravity waves rippled outward, distorting the orbits of nearby moons. Every Terran ship within range adjusted immediately, engaging gravitational stabilizers. Even at a distance, the humans could feel the pull. Then, through the chaos, a realization struck. The weapon wasn't designed to destroy ships. It was designed to erase space itself. The Eclipse core was collapsing the fabric of reality, pulling everything, light, matter, and energy, into a single point. A black sphere began to form above the planet, devouring everything around it. Imperial citizens screamed as their world began to bend. Oceans rose into the sky. Towers twisted like paper. The Emperor stood in his throne room, staring at the growing void that now consumed the horizon. His final order had been given. His pride had doomed them all. But the humans, they didn't flee. They studied. They adapted. They prepared. Within minutes, the Resolution's command AI had calculated the exact resonance frequency of the weapon's energy pulse. Humanity had one chance, one countermeasure that could prevent the collapse from spreading to the rest of the system. The order went out. Deploy the Singularity Net. From every Terran ship, silver drones launched into space, unfolding massive energy grids across the void. Each grid linked to the next, forming a vast, shimmering lattice, a web of quantum fields designed to contain the imploding energy. The humans didn't try to stop the weapon. They redirected it. As the Eclipse core reached critical mass, the planet's surface shattered. Entire continents disintegrated, drawn into the black sphere. The Imperial fleet tried to escape, but their engines failed. They were caught in the pull, dragged down into the abyss they had created. And yet, the Terran grid held. The energy from the dying planet began to flow into the web, redirected toward the dark edges of space. The humans were not just surviving, they were transforming the weapon's power into something new. Back on the Resolution, sensors spiked with readings never seen before. A stable artificial singularity, contained and balanced. They had done what the Empire never could. They had controlled the energy of a dying world. Below them, Selvaris finally broke apart. The oceans turned to vapor, the sky turned to flame, and the capital of the galaxy became a scar in the fabric of time itself. Where once stood the seat of arrogance, there was now only silence. For a long time, no one spoke. The Terran fleet drifted quietly, watching the light fade from what had been the heart of an empire. They had won, but victory did not feel like triumph. They had not come to destroy life, only to end tyranny. And as the dust of Kelvaris settled, the truth of humanity's vengeance became clear. They were not conquerors. They were survivors who refused to be forgotten. From the ashes of the Empire, a message was transmitted across the galaxy. Not in words, but in frequencies. A pulse of light, encoded in every known language. Its meaning was simple. Power is not in domination, but in endurance. You mocked our silence. Now, remember our strength. The signal spread from system to system. Empires that had once enslaved humanity bowed their heads. Colonies that had once ignored Earth sent messages of peace. The age of arrogance had ended. The age of humanity had begun. But deep within the remnants of the Selvaris system, sensors picked up a faint anomaly, a fragment of the Eclipse core, still active, still pulsing faintly in the dark. Human analysts detected the signal and marked it. Recovered anomaly, Phase 2 potential. They did not destroy it. They brought it aboard a research vessel. For humanity knew that even in victory, there was always something to learn, something to prepare for. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, other civilizations were watching. Silent. Waiting. Because they had seen what humanity could do when provoked. They wondered what might happen if the humans were ever threatened again. The galaxy had mocked humanity once. It would never make that mistake again. As the Terran Armada turned toward the stars, engines glowing like newborn suns, the final transmission echoed through the void. "This is Earth Command. The war is over. The lesson remains." And in the endless silence of space, the echoes of that message burned brighter than any star. The war had ended, but the echoes remained. In the cold silence of the void where Kelveris once stood, only fragments of dust drifted, the final remains of a civilization that had believed itself eternal. The Galactic Empire, a force that had ruled countless worlds, had fallen into nothingness. And at the center of that silence, the Terran Armada lingered. Their ships floated like dark angels above the grave of their enemies, not in celebration, but in reflection. The stars burned faintly, their light shimmering across the metal hulls scarred by war. Every dent, every burn mark, every scorched plate told the same story. Humanity had fought back and they had survived. For generations they had been seen as the weakest species, the ones who talked too much, who fought each other, who dreamed of stars they could never reach. Now they stood alone at the top of the galactic chain, not because of conquest, but because they had endured everything the universe could throw at them. In the command chamber of the TSV Resolution, the central AI finished its last combat log. The record was simple. Operation Requiem concluded, hostile threat neutralized. Civilizational hierarchy reset, and then silence. Across the fleet, human crews began to disarm weapons, power down shields, and shift into recovery mode. The stars that once felt hostile now seemed peaceful again. But peace was a strange thing for humanity. After centuries of mockery, enslavement, and rebellion, the quiet felt unfamiliar, almost haunting. On the third day after the destruction of Kelveris, a signal spread from Earth. It was not a command, not a warning. It was a message, one meant for every living species across the galaxy. The message began with an image, the blue and white sphere of Earth floating in the darkness. Then came a voice, calm, steady, human. "To those who remain, we did not seek this war. We only wanted peace. You taught us to fight, and we learned. Now the stars are silent again. Let that silence remind you, peace is not weakness. It is choice. Choose wisely." The message looped once, then stopped. The galaxy listened. Worlds that had once cheered for the Empire now trembled in guilt. Species that had ignored Earth's suffering sent pleas for forgiveness. Others swore allegiance to a new order, not of dominance, but of unity. Humanity did not reject them. They welcomed them. From the ashes of destruction, the Terran Accord was born, a coalition of free worlds, led not by fear, but by memory. The Accord symbol was simple, a ring of stars surrounding Earth's crest, representing cooperation through strength. No species was forced to join. Yet one by one they came. Former slaves, scattered traders, abandoned colonies, all seeking safety under the shadow of the humans. Because everyone in the galaxy now knew one thing. If humanity promised peace, they meant it. But if provoked, they would bring fire. As the years passed, the scars of war began to fade. Destroyed colonies were rebuilt. Silent systems came alive again with trade and light. Where once there was fear, there was now respect. Human engineers shared their knowledge freely, not as conquerors but as teachers. They built communication hubs that spanned galaxies, terraformed dead worlds, and reopened travel lanes long lost to war. Yet even in peace, the humans never forgot. Every Terran ship carried a small inscription etched near its core. "Remember Kelveris, remember Earth." It was not a threat. It was a reminder of who they had been and what they had overcome. Beyond the borders of the Accord, remnants of the old empire drifted in exile. Some hid in deep space, nursing hatred. Others simply waited, watching, unable to comprehend how the once laughed-at species had turned into a legend. They whispered in fear about the humans' next move. Would they expand further? Would they seek vengeance on every world that had ever wronged them? But the humans did none of that. Instead, they looked inward. Earth became the center of a new civilization, a place not of power but of purpose. Its skies were filled with ships from hundreds of species, its cities rebuilt with both human and alien hands. Children of a dozen worlds learned side by side, Languages mixed, cultures merged, and slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Still, not all wounds fade easily. At the edge of known space, a Terran outpost picked up an anomaly. A faint pulse in the darkness, rhythmic and artificial. It matched no known signature except one. The Eclipse fragment. Recovered from the ruins of Selvaris, it had been dormant for years, sealed deep within a secure research station. But now, something had changed. The fragment had begun to hum, quietly, steadily, as if responding to something beyond space and time. Scientists monitored it closely. The readings were unlike anything they had ever seen. Patterns, frequencies, almost like a message. The data was transmitted to Earth Command. No one panicked. No one rushed to prepare for war. Humanity had learned patience. They had learned that not every noise in the dark was an enemy. But they also knew to never ignore the signs. Earth Command issued a quiet directive. Observe, record, because humanity understood something the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to realize. Peace was temporary, but readiness was eternal. In the vastness of the cosmos, new civilizations would rise, others would fall, but the name of humanity would remain, not because of fear, not because of dominance, but because they had proven in the darkest age of the galaxy that even the smallest spark could become a supernova. As the Terran fleet set course for home, the stars reflected off their hulls like ancient memories. Once the galaxy had laughed at them. Now it watched them with reverence. The last words of the Terran broadcast lingered across every channel, repeating quietly through the static of space. We are humanity. We learn. We endure. We rise. And as the fleet disappeared into the endless glow of hyperspace, the light of a new dawn spread across the galaxy. A dawn that would never again forget the day the mocked became the masters.